Hey there. So in this video we're going to talk about the quadratic formula. This is a formula that can be used to solve any quadratic equation. So here we go.
All right, so let's recall what the quadratic formula said. It says that if you have an equation of the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, you need a 0 on the right-hand side, then the solution to this, or the solutions, are given by this formula. I say solutions because there's a plus or minus here. So there's actually a possibility of two solutions. If this stuff is not 0, right, then you're going to be adding or subtracting this number. When you add it, you get one solution. When you subtract it, you get another solution. Of course, if this is 0, you're adding or subtracting nothing, so you actually only have one solution. Right? So there's a possibility of one or two solutions when you use the quadratic formula. And we can see that's an interesting fact. Any second-degree polynomial equation will have exactly one or two solutions. And that's what this is actually showing us. Those solutions might be complex numbers, right? If you take the square root of a negative number, we know that we get a complex number. So that is a possibility here. All right, so we're going to use this to solve some problems. I made note of some, and then I seem to have lost them. So give me a second to find where I may have put that sheet. Now, there's some of them there. Sorry about this. I just misplaced problems that I had readied here. Oh, here they are. Okay, the last sheet I was looking at. Always in the last place you look. All right, so number 1, we want to solve. In all of these problems, we're going to solve. This equation. All right, well, it's just a matter of using that formula up here, right? So let's just apply it. So here we have the A, B, and C. A is 3. B is -5. And C is +2. Okay, so let's just plug that stuff in here. B is -5, so -5 is +5. B squared, that's -5 squared. It's 25. 4AC, that's 4 times 3 times 2. That is 24. Okay. Divide by 2A. A was 3. 2 times 3 is 6. So those are answers, but we can simplify this quite a bit. This is 5 plus or minus, well, 25 minus 24 is 1. The square root of 1 is 1. So we have two answers. We have 5 minus 1 over 6. That's 4/6. The other answer is 5 plus 1 over 6. That's 6/6. Of course, we can write that, we can simplify those, right? 4/6 is the same as 2/3, and 6/6 is the same as 1. So there are the possible values for x. In my open math, you'll have to write these separated by commas in the box. All right, so you'll write 2/3, comma 1. That's the preferred form of entry in the online homework. Okay. So just applying that formula, that's all we got to do. Let's do another one. Let's do y squared equals 15 plus 2y. Okay, well, for this problem, we don't yet have it in the form to which the equation applies, right? We need to have it in this form. And what is that form? Well, we have a 0 on the right-hand side. Okay, so that's not yet like that. So we need to manipulate this equation a little bit using algebra so that there's a 0 on the right-hand side. So let's do that. So I'm going to subtract 2y from both sides. So I get y squared minus 2y equals 15. Now to get 0, I'm going to subtract 15 from both sides. Okay, good. There it is. We got our 0. Now, now we can use the quadratic formula. Okay, there it is. We need to know what a, b, and c are, and then we just plug those in here. Well, let's look at this. A is the coefficient in front of the variable that's squared. So a is 1. Right? B is the coefficient in front of the variable. So that's a -2. And c is the last value that you have that's being added without a variable. So c is -15. So a is 1, b is -2, c is -15. So in this case, the variable is y, so I'm going to write y equals, and let's look back up at our formula. It's -b, so it's -2, so that's +2, plus or minus the square root of b squared, all right? So b squared is the -2 squared, so that's 4, minus 4 times a times c. So it's going to be 4 times 1 times -15. 4 times 1 is 4, and 4 times -15 is -60. Okay. And then we divide by 2a. So the a was 1, 2 times 1 is 2. So there we have it. Okay, so this is equal to 2 plus or minus, well, look at this, 4 minus -60. That's the same thing as 4 plus +60. That's 64, right? The square root of 64 is 8. Four minus -60 is 4 plus +60. And so remember, subtracting a number is the same thing as adding the opposite. So that gives 64, and the square root of 64 is 8. Okay? So when I add 8, I get, well, let's do the subtract. We did subtract first last time. Let's do that the same. If I subtract 8, I get -6 over 2. If I add 8, I get 10 over 2. So I'm getting 2 answers here. I'm getting -3, and I'm also getting 5. So y could be either one of those, and they would solve this equation. All right. So let's look at another one. Let's try to leave that up there in case you're still copying it down. All right. So the next one will be The answer to this one is going to be a little bit more complex. I don't know if it'll be a complex number, but it'll be a little bit more sophisticated, maybe. All right, so here we have 3m squared plus 12m plus 7 equals 0. Well, fortunately, it's already got equals 0, so I don't have to do that stuff that I did up here, right? It's already set equal to 0, so we're good to go. I know that m is equal to, remember, it's negative b, so it's negative 12 plus or minus the square root of b squared, so 12 squared, that's 144, minus 4 times a times c. Now, maybe I shouldn't have written the, I think we can just, well, no, maybe I'll write it down, because it's a more complicated thing to multiply out. 4 times a times c, 4 times 3 times 7. And then we're going to divide by 2a, 2 times 3. Okay. All right, well, yeah, what is 4 times 3 times 7? Well, that's 12 times 7. That's 84, right? 12 times 7, 84. So 144 minus 84 is 60. Okay. So, okay. Unfortunately, unlike the last problems, 60 isn't, let me adjust the camera a little bit. 60 isn't a perfect square, so it's not going to come out as nice as before, but it is something we can simplify. All right, let's do that on the side here. What's the square root of 60? Can we simplify that? Well, can we factor out a perfect square? Well, yeah, it's divisible by 4, right? So root 60 is root 4 times 15. And I know what the square root of 4 is. It's 2. So that's 2 root 15. And 15 doesn't have any perfect square factors, so that's as good as we can get here. Okay, so that's what we're going to put in there. In place of 60, we're going to write 2 root 15. All right. We can simplify this a little bit more, because you see the numerator and denominator are divisible by 2. All right, so we can kind of simplify this by dividing the numerator and denominator by 2. So let's do that. Okay. Negative 12 divided by 2 is negative 6. 2 divided by 2 is 1. So I'm just left with root 15. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Okay, so that's one way to write the answer. You could just write it like this. Okay, that's a common way to write this kind of answer. Or you could write it like this. You could write down the two answers individually. Negative 6 minus root 15 over 3. And then put an or here. And then negative 6 plus root 15 over 3. So in my open math, you're going to want to write the two answers separately, because there's no plus or minus button. All right, so you're going to have to write it like this. And you'll separate these by commas. And this is as simple as we can write it, because unfortunately, root 15 can't be simplified anymore. This is as good as we can get. And I want to caution everybody not to make the mistake of trying to cancel the 3 and the 6. Can't do that. I'm not allowed. All right. Same reason why I didn't just factor the 6, cancel the 6 here. can't do that because you have to do it from every term in the numerator if they're being added or subtracted. All right, so what I did do is divide the numerator and denominator by 2, but when I divided by 2, I divided both of these by 2, right? Not just one of them. So you can't just cancel the 3 with the 6 and ignore the root 15, right? If it doesn't go into there evenly, you can't do that. So this is as simple as it gets. This is fully simplified. All right. Let's look at a couple more, and then we'll move on to the application problems, okay? This one is 5b squared plus 2b plus 4 equals 0. Now this one's going to be a little bit confusing to talk about because it's got the letter b as a variable, even though we were using the letter b to denote the coefficient in front of the variable, right? So it might be a little bit confusing here. We have to keep those straight. So don't get that b confused with this b. We're using the same letter here. We happen to use the same letter here for something else, all right? The b in this formula corresponds to the 2, the number in front of the variable. So we have to be a little bit cautious here about how we approach this, but just treat it the same way. All right, so the variable here is b, so the quadratic formula tells us that b is equal to negative the coefficient in front of the variable, that, plus or minus the square root of that coefficient squared, minus 4 times this, all right? 4 times 5 times 4. Well, let's see, 4 times 5 is 20, and 20 times 4 is 80, right? 4 times 5 times 4. That was the 4AC part, right? Okay, and so we divide by twice this number. That's 10 in this case. So here we have our essentially our answer. We just need to simplify it. What's 4 minus 80? Well, that's negative 76. All right, well, let's simplify root negative 76. We're running out of space, so I'm going to go way up here. All right, and we'll simplify that. Root negative 76. Well, we know that when we have a negative inside the square root, it comes out as I. So this is root 76 times I. Okay, so this is going to be a complex number, an imaginary number here. Now, can I factor out a perfect square here? Can I simplify this? Well, let's see. 76 is divisible by 2. In fact, it's exactly twice 38. And 38 is divisible by 2. So that means it's divisible by 4. It's 19 times 4. And 19 is a prime number, so that's as good as I can do. So I can write this as 4 times 19 under the square root. And the square root of 4, just like we did up here, is 2. So it's 2 root 19I. That's what root negative 76 is. All right? 2 root 19I. So that is what we're going to put in place of here. So let's go up here. B is equal to negative 2 plus or minus 2 root 19I over 10. Now I'm seeing that everything here is divisible by 2, so we can simplify everything by dividing it by 2, just like we did in the previous problem. Negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1. 2 divided by 2 is 1, so I'm just left with the root 19I there. And in the bottom, I have 5. Okay, so that is the answer, and a lot of times people will write it like that, but on my open math, they want you to write the individual answers separately. So we're going to take the two answers. The negative one where we subtract, that's -1 minus root 19I over 5. And then the other answer is -1 plus root 19I over 5. So those are our two answers. Excuse the mess below here. Just ignore that. So that is our final answer.
All right, so that's it for the quadratic formula. I will catch you in the next video.